Item 5, adoption of minutes. Can I get a motion to move by Councillor Wheat, second by Councillor Ferrier? Any corrections, additions, deletions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Any business arising from those minutes? That's not already on the agenda. Okay, seeing none, we'll go to Councillor Gatward. Go ahead. Use your mic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The delegation that we had regarding the filling in of the pond, we received correspondence from staff regarding that property, and will somebody report back to this committee regarding the outcome?
Yeah, the answer is yes, and General Manager Pam is nodding yes, so yes.
Okay, that's fine, thank you, because I was quite surprised when I read the report.
I think we'll leave that in.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, no other business arising from the minutes. We'll move on to consent item 7A. There's 4 items. I will remove any if anybody wishes. I have a question, but I don't need any removed. But I will remove any items. Okay, seeing none, I will ask we get Councillor Pierce, you're moving them, second by Councillor House. Okay, any questions on any of those? We have first one from Dave Stevenson, Zach Gable, Alex Davidson, and another one, municipal drinking water systems. Okay. Any questions on any of those? Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. So it's on, I guess it's 7A3. It's on page 27 of our, I'm just curious, the number 5 there, it says, water taking from overburdened wells in Gilbert is below the threshold requiring a fisheries assessment report on Gilbert Creek. Like, is this all of a sudden this is new and requires a report because they're lower, or have we been trending lower? I'm just curious on that.
And Councillor Pierce, sorry, what page are you on? 40?
It's 27.
27, okay. And Mr. Davidson's not here. And Rob, are you able to field that one or not?
Is that on? I don't know if that's on.
Is it on now? Okay, through the chair to Councillor Pierce. I'm not sure if this is something that changed over time, but these are particular requirements. When you do the source water protection plan, they have to look at the water balance.
Right.
So usually what happens in these things is that when the water balance is looked at, they would determine a threshold at which, for something like this, where you would need to do this assessment.
Right.
And clearly at this time, we're below that.
Okay, so that's what I'm trying to understand here. When was the last time we had to do an assessment on it, or when was the last time it was looked like? Like, is this just something we found, oh, this is below? Or do we have something that states that we've been gradually declining and now we've hit that level?
Yeah, through the chair, I'll have to get you the details on that. I don't know the actual details of that. But I know this will have come through the source water protection plan and,
Yep.
and the water balance that's
Right.
out of that. And these sort of requirements are particular to the specific wells.
Yep.
It isn't just an overall thing. So
Yep.
why that's come, I'll have to get you that answer.
Yeah, I'm just, like I say, I'm just curious, is this where it's like, oh, wow, we're low, or have we seen a trend on this? And then once I get that, I can go on to a different question after that. Because overall, like, what I'm getting from this report is, as far as consumption-wise, we're pretty good. We're hitting levels that we've got some access here. I was just curious about this part.
Yeah, through the chair to the committee, it's really interesting in most of North America, as water rates and the like have gone up, and some appliances have changed and the like. The trend is that water consumption everywhere is going down. In many areas, even with development, you're seeing lower amounts of consumption. So that actually is a good trend for us. going forward.
Thank you. Yeah, if we could find that out, that'd be great. Thank you.
On the same topic or another topic? Because we got Rob up here. Okay, go ahead.
On page 30, the Mount Pleasant.
Joe, microphone?
On page 30, the Mount Pleasant drinking water system, conclusions and recommendations. It mentions the elevated nitrate in the shallow upper aquifer. And I can recall when we bought property near, or when we did well work out by Sobeys, and there was a property there that we owned, or we bought from a farmer, and we made an agreement that he wouldn't put fertilizer on it, because that can be where the nitrates come from, obviously. So in those drinking water protection areas, do we have those same agreements with farmers around our well?
Excuse me. Yeah, I'm not sure the particulars in each one of our water taking areas, whether there are agreements. I know that out at Bethel, when that was designed, there actually was nitrate removal equipment put in there, and after some years of water taking, it really has never been used because the nitrates, as soon as we start pumping it, the levels actually all decreased. Over that period of time, a lot of farm practices have changed too. If you went back into the 70s and the 80s, the amount of nitrogen that was applied in fertilizer was substantially more than it is today. It's gone down for a couple of reasons. One is the technology of how it's applied has changed, and the costs that have gone up so that farmers don't want to apply any more than they really have to. So that has helped out in many cases as well.
Right. But I could find out from the water manager, couldn't I?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Pierce again?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One more note I had on that 7A3. It talks about for the Gilbert well and such. I'm curious, because it talks about the extra flow of water from the subdivision that's up there heading, I guess, what is that, east down into that direction. And there would have to be a study on that. Could that affect what's being done with those cordon lands up there? Could that delay that?
Yes, it could.
Okay, thank you.
And Rob, don't go away yet. Any other questions on the water? Okay, Rob, I got a question too, and I appreciate you taking that for the team on this one, but my question's on page 37 of our package, and that's on the Telfer well. It's under recommendations, and I'm asking this because I know there's a lot of residents that are concerned about that, and primarily through CCOB. And maybe we don't get an answer tonight, but maybe we could get an answer for council next week or something. But the recommendations regarding Telfer, it says, recommendation number 2, the county should review the Telfer monitoring program data in conjunction with the CRH, Canada Paris Pit monitoring data, once the latter becomes available. So 2 questions I would have on that one. Well, when will that data become available? Because there's no dates. And what I'm also looking at, what should we be looking for, or what are they looking for? Are they still monitoring the same things as before, or is, because the issue of atrazine was brought up, are they testing for that at maybe lower levels? So I'm just,
Which page are you on?
it's page 37 of our package. No, on the Telfer well recommendations. There's only 2 recommendations. Page 33 of our package, I'm sorry.
33, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was
My PDF, page
looking at the same thing
37.
you are.
PDF is 37, but yeah, that page 33 paper package. Item number 2.
Yeah, so there's, over time, like this is the water taking report, the monitoring of the municipal aquifers. So, yeah, the data says that we're not declining the groundwater levels due to the production there. So, over time, you need to monitor that and make sure you're not decreasing the water levels, because if you are, you're mining it. And there's examples in large municipalities in, places like the southwestern states where they are using huge aquifers, but they actually are mining them. And over time, that's very problematic. In Ontario, the way the water taking legislation is put out, any water taking more than 50,000 liters a day, which sounds like a big number, but it's really not. That's only 7.6 gallons a minute over the whole day. Requires a water taking permit, and then they put the criteria on it as to how you have to monitor that over time. It's really set up so that you're monitoring that, you're reporting to them, and you should be showing that you're never, over time, taking those water levels down. Short periods of time, maybe just a little bit, and then it can rebound, but overall that it's not declining.
But like I said, what I'm getting at is when is that data going to become available? Because I think maybe that will be good
No,
data.
this data is, we're continuously, like weekly, grabbing that data. So all the time we're getting that data and then analyzing as we go along.
Okay. So, but next year we should see a summary of that reporting though, on that well, I would suspect, in our annual report.
No, but what it's saying is that there is no long-term decline in it.
Okay.
So there is no real issue.
I think he's looking at it a little bit. I think, pardon me, through you, Mr. Chair, I think your question is about the monitoring reports from Dufferin Aggregates.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think as part of their permit to take water, they're required to submit their annual reports to us. I think we can find the date, we can find a timeline on when they come in, and we can report back.
Yeah.
And again, the only reason I'm bringing that up is because I know there's a lot of people watching that data, so. But we'll leave that for tonight. Okay, any other questions on any of those? Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? I will point out, Councillor Pierce was there. And somebody else was there. We had a pick on the Bethel Waterfield, well field the other night. Yes, and that was really good. That was excellent. It's nice when there wasn't many people because the consultants could spend a lot of time explaining everything to you. So. Okay, that brings us to 7B, and we have 6 items. Does anybody want any of those removed? Okay, seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to get those on the table to proceed. Moved by Mayor Bailey, second by Councillor House. None were removed. Any discussion on any of those? Councillor Ferrier.
I just wanted to note at this meeting, having read it, I was very pleased with the Ontario Small Urban Municipality Conference report that former Councillor Powell will be recognized at the event. I know when we went to OSIM this year, I knew Murray less well than probably everybody at this table, but I still knew him well. I offered to volunteer for him like 2 elections ago, and really liked him. And it was nice to be there, and people didn't know my relationship to Murray, but they were they went out of their way to say good things about him, and I think it's a wonderful initiative that is being included and thoughtful from staff to do so.
Thank you, Mark. Any other discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed. Okay, that brings us to committee reports. None in the addendum. Staff reports, corporate services, general manager's update. Robin has an update tonight.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to give you an update on the grants. So if you have probably noticed that the grants binders are on the back table back there for you all to take home. And we've prepared 2 ways to score the grants, one being a manual way, which there's a copy of the manual scoring sheet in the binder. And you can also do it electronically. So tomorrow after 3 o'clock, we'll be sending you each a link if you want to do it electronically. And if you have any questions or need any help in doing or working through the binders or how to do the scoring, or electronically if you have any problems, you can call Heather Mifflin and she'll meet with you or walk you through it either way. And the deadline for this to be done is Thursday, March 19th. No, we've got a month. It's over a month. Okay? That was it.
Any questions for Robin while we got her at the podium? You guys take advantage of it. Okay, thank you very much, Robin. Okay, operations, Rob, you just want to let us know about a public event coming up?
Through the chair to committee, just thought I'd bring up, in case anybody didn't know, that there actually is a meeting on Wednesday night at the Egg Hall and Paris Fairgrounds. Talk about Grand River Street North. And I hope a lot of people come out and we have good dialogue. The purpose of the meeting is not to rehash everything that's happened in the past, but to talk about the changes made since the last meeting, bring people up to date on that, talk about that, answer their questions, provide that information, and move on to hopefully the finalization of this project for council's approval.
Okay, just, Rob, I think the presentation's at 6:30 tomorrow, right?
Whatever it says in the advertisement, I believe it would be 6:30.
Yeah, 6 to 8, and presentation at 6:30. Okay. Any questions for Mr. Walton? Councillor House?
Thanks, through you, Mr. Chair. And just to clarify, process-wise, nobody has seen Wednesday night's presentation online. Because I've had some people saying, "Oh, I've looked online and I'm concerned about this, I'm concerned about that," and I've tried to say, the purpose of Wednesday night is for all of us to see the latest proposals and the latest changes and the latest tweaks. So nobody has seen that yet, correct?
That's correct. The public has not seen it. A limited number of staff have seen it. That's it.
Right, so new information for just about everybody.
That's right.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mark.
Including us. Through you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering, approximately, again on process, when this is the last public piece to this, after this, comments that are made through this part of the process will go into a final draft, and that final draft will come to council when?
Through the chair to committee. We should never say it's a final public meeting because we really don't know what we're going to have at this meeting. We're anticipating it to be the final meeting. I've told a few people this. There's 11 proposed changes to the plan, which we're going to detail. We're going to give about 2 weeks for people to make comments, and then we're going to finalize the report. So I would suggest that it would be in April before it would come back to council.
Thank you. That's very helpful clarification.
The other member have a question for Rob? Well, we got him. Thank you, Rob. We'll see you tomorrow at 9 a.m.
Thank you.
Community and Protective Services, Cindy, there's no update. Does anybody have a question for Cindy at this time? Councillor Galway?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the general manager, I've had some inquiries about when will the Onondaga station be finished? And I never thought to ask the fellow that's helping with those earlier today. Do you have a date yet, or is there any information on completion date of, is that one first and then Canesville?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, that's correct. The Onondaga station is scheduled to be completed first. I actually spoke with Mr. Wamsteker today, and he just received an updated construction schedule. From what I understand, I haven't received that yet, but we expect that hall to be completed by June, shortly followed by Canesville and then Scotland.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Cindy? Oh, we got her. Okay, Cindy, thank you very much. Development Services, there's one recommendation before you, one report. Can I get a mover to get that on the floor? Moved by Councillor Pierce, second by Councillor Coleman. Does anybody have any questions on that one? Go ahead, Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So I'm curious, if we're going to this new software, that's fine. We've been using this one since 2012 is what it says, but what I need to understand here is this, it talks about extra things it can do. I just want to make sure that it's going to do everything we will require it to do. And is there any perks that are kind of like, hey, with this we get, that are pluses?
Okay, well, we'll ask the author of the report.
Through the chair to council, the quick answer is yes. I personally am very familiar with CityView. The new interface is something we had in Norfolk for about a year before I came here. There are different opportunities than CityView Workspace that we currently utilize now. It's a more friendly way to use the program, and it also has some online services that we can grow within the department.
As long as it gets you everything you need, I'm good with it. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Pam on that report? Councillor Galbraith?
Thank you. And CityView is the software that layers the various components of our infrastructure and information that we have within our municipality that different departments can look at. Is that correct?
Through the chair to council, CityView is a large database, if you will, that holds all of our planning and building files, as well as bylaw services uses it. So it's not map related. It can talk to Canoe and GIS. It has the abilities to do that in the future, but we use it strictly as a file database and management, and it helps us through our processes together.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions on the report? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, none? Okay, Pam, thank you for that report, and that'll bring us to your update.
Just quickly, one thing, council has probably seen the announcement that went out via email today, but I am happy to report that we have hired a replacement for Mr. Rob Trotter. A new director of planning will be starting on Tuesday, March 24th. His name is Matt Vaughn. He has both municipal backgrounds from the city of Kitchener, Brampton, Guelph, and most recently Norfolk. And he also has some private experience. He worked previously with MHBC. He does have a bachelor's and a master's in planning from Waterloo, and he's currently working on his PhD and researching cannabis and policy and planning. So we're excited to have him join us here at the County of Brant.
Okay. Anything else, Pam? Okay, any questions for Pam at this time? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Pam. Strategic initiatives, general manager's update. Allison does not have an update. I'll ask committee, is there any questions of Allison at this time? Seeing none, we'll go on to F. And we have, we'll start with F1. There's a recommendation from our clerk regarding setting in motion, I guess, a look at the council structure ward boundaries. So I'm going to ask if I can get a motion from the floor, get on the table. Okay, we'll go Mayor Bailey, Councillor Coleman. Any questions or discussion on that one? Okay, seeing none. You have one? Question? Okay, go ahead.
My question is through you, Mr. Chairman, to the clerk. When will the interviews be scheduled?
I'll be working with the mayor. We'll be scheduling them probably starting early March. We're going to look at the questions and frame that up for March and April.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? No? Okay. Brings us to 9F2, and delegation of authority bylaw. This is from our CAO. It's a bit of a lengthy report, but there's a lot of details in there. Let's get a motion on the floor to get it going. Okay, moved by Councillor LaFerrier, second by Councillor McAlpine. Any questions? I have one, but does the committee, any questions from the committee on that report? Okay, go ahead, Councillor LaFerrier.
Excuse me, through you to Michael. Just looking at page 4 out of 5 of the report, under planning and development, there's 2 bullet points. They're the, let's see, 3rd and 4th bullet point. Development agreements of various forms for council-approved development projects, execution of final plans of subdivision and plans of condominium that have been approved by council, including the extension of draft plan conditions and making minor changes to draft plan conditions that are keeping with the original council-approved plans. My question about that is things like when we had a developer not that long ago come to us and say, I'd like 75 more units in these 394, or the building, the proposed 12-story building, would those things still be coming to council? Or I've just seen a few things and people have asked that, you know, we might consider minor technically, but it feels major to the public at large. So I just want some clarification on that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, so those types of things you just indicated would be coming back to council. I don't know what the correct terminology, but I think those are reapplications, I believe, for lack of a better term. Minor changes, we ran into one last spring. There was a 1 foot reserve on the plan, and it really wasn't working anymore, and so we needed to move that 1 foot reserve. And it was really just a technicality. So those are the things that we would be making changes at the staff level, but anything application-wise would be coming back to, you know, so we would not classify what you just said as minors.
So if Canada Post wants to move their mailboxes from one side of the street to the other, that's not going to come back to council and be held up. But if it's something like the addition of units, it will come back to council.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent, thank you.
Any other questions? Councilor Gatward?
On page 158 or 4 or 5, under property, the minor acquisition of lands for county projects were approved. Budget for these acquisitions are in place. At budget time, we don't really talk about, as an example, road projects that we might need to acquire land for. And we're saying in here that we're giving staff authority to arrange for land acquisition, which would include purchasing land. Will those proposed purchases still come to the new corporate committee?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's my understanding we already have delegated authority to make minor land acquisitions in relation to small road construction projects. And that could include the acquisition of lands for survey work, private, and I went through this with my own property where I ended up, I owned a small piece of the road allowance, and so we transacted land to the county to clean that up. So we already have delegated authority for this. So this would be minor, little slices of land, widenings, for example, we would be transacting at the staff level. Now, if we were to be acquiring an entire house, for example, obviously that would come back to council. That would be a major land acquisition.
Yeah. Road widenings often are included in severances and subdivision plans and so on, and those are normally done, well, the severances are done by committee of adjustment, but plans of subdivision still come to us, but we don't acquire minor pieces of land. But if that's what you are talking about in that statement, then that's fine. The renewal of leases, is that all the lands that we lease to farmers? They usually come for approval to us, so they wouldn't need to anymore?
Mr. Through you, Mr. Yes, indeed. Any lease renewals we would now be doing at the staff level. And we would be basically renewing those leases as long as they remained consistent with the terms of the original lease.
Okay. And why would we ever want to make an appeal to the local planning appeals tribunal? It says authority to make appeals to LPAT prior to the end of an appeal period.
Through you, Mr. Chair, well, if there was a planning matter, so for example, we made an appeal against a planning matter in an adjacent municipality recently.
I'm sorry,
If there was a planning matter that council was not pleased with and they wanted to appeal that to the LPAT, then council may want to do that. So what we're asking for authority to do is to make those appeals in the event that council couldn't get together to make that decision in the timeline that there is before the appeal period runs out. So there's an appeal period, I don't know how long it is, but it's limited. And if we, at the staff level, feel that the municipality should be making that appeal, we would make the appeal, and then we would come to council as is indicated in the schedule and validate that. And if council said, no, don't make that appeal, then we would withdraw the appeal. But for example, we made an appeal recently to a planning matter in another municipality, in an adjacent municipality. So that's a good example of a time when council would appeal something to the LPAT.
oh, something in an adjacent municipality. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, Michael, my question, on page 157, maybe I'm getting into the weeds a bit here. Is the approval of requests for exemptions from the county's noise bylaw, subject to the conditions outlined in the bylaw? Now, my understanding of exemptions to the county noise bylaw is that we have to have a public meeting. I'm trying, how would that work? Any idea? That's the last one there on page 157.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I told Jody she didn't need to be here tonight. That was a mistake. I actually don't know the answer to that question. I see your point of the fact that currently the bylaw does have public meetings, and then usually you pass the exemption. So I will have to look further into that, and we can communicate back through council through a memo.
Okay, next week I'd like to see that answer then. Perfect. Okay, any other questions for Michael? Okay, see none, all in favor? Opposed? None? Okay, a lot of work went into that one. Michael, you want to give us an update?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of short things. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., which is when Public Works Committee will be going on, I will be actually meeting with representatives of Enbridge, and I'm going to be talking about natural gas extensions, which seems to be a topic of concern, and I've had 2 or 3 residents come in recently to ask me about that. There's some provincial money on the table, there's some process, so I think there's some stuff that we as an organization don't understand, and so they're going to update me on that, and then I will bring a report back to council on what those various different processes are, so that we can all then communicate it back out to our residents, including whether the municipality has a role in any of that. So I think that's a good step for all of us to get up to speed on that process. Mr. Walton noted that there's a public meeting on Wednesday for Grand River Street North. There's also a public meeting the following Wednesday for the Fire Master Plan, and it's at 7 a.m. at the Brent Sports Complex. The new committee structure will commence in March, and senior management team has got that a standing item on our agendas, so that we'll continue to make sure that we're reviewing reports and getting them slotted into the right committee. It's going to be a bit of a learning experience for us, but I think we should do okay on that. And finally, I just wanted to mention that Ms. Newton, I believe last week, served the remainder, or closed her term as past chair or president? Chair? Past chair of Economic Developers Council of Ontario. So that was 2 years of her life that she invested into that as president and past president. And congratulations to her for finishing that off. I know she's quite relieved, and we're very proud of her to have held that position. So it's my report, Mr. Chairman.
And she was never impeached during her term as president either, which is something to be proud of. Any questions for Michael at this time? Okay, see it? Go ahead.
Just to confirm that the meeting for the fire is 7 p.m. instead of 7 a.m.?
Did I say 7 a.m.?
I would go early, but I just want to know if they're serving breakfast.
Some of us are morning people, what can I say? So.
It's always dark. Okay, we're going to go to item 10 in the package, and just to be very clear, 10A has been withdrawn, so we will not worry about that tonight. But it does take us down to 10B, and there's a letter from one of the residents, and I will look to committee to see how they would like to deal with that letter. Okay, I'll go to you, Mark. Go ahead. Okay, and are we going to refer to the they don't want to refer to the consultant. Okay, so move to receive. Councillor Wheat, will you second that one? Okay. Any discussion? See none, all in favor? Okay. Matters referred by council, there are none. And Mary Bell, did you have something under other business? Oh, no, yours was 13B in camera. Okay, can I get a motion to go in camera? Okay, moved by Councillor House, second by Councillor Pierce. All in favor? And seeing, I don't think there's anybody here we have to boot out. Is the YouTube thing on? You're welcome, and we are adjourned.